whatever reason there may be, and that our homes can also receive moments like this as we share our God at home, a moment of prayer, a moment of happiness for encounters like this. With your guidance, protection, and permission, we open this meeting, and so be it. Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon, good evening, perhaps good morning for those of us who will be watching this during the day as we stream, right? As we take the time to go back to our different platforms that we use to watch this talk again. I am super excited and happy to be here with you because we're giving continuation to something that we start some time ago. And every time we stop and study and learn from the parables, it's an eye-opener, right? The much that we have discussed this parable here, because it's also in the Gospel according to Spiritism on chapter 16, item 6 to be specific, and then Kardec actually comments on item 7 and a little bit on the item 8 as well, if I'm not mistaken. But it is a parable that, for lack of better words, that first of all, really questions our connection with our Creator, right? We'll see a little bit more. And that's how I would like to start this. Before we read the parable, I would like to ask you, how is our connection with our Creator? And it's an open question. You can answer if you want to. Let us think. How is our connection with our Creator? Did we pray today? Dion is saying, oh, yes. Miss Maria saying, yes. Right? Iracema is laughing. So our internet connection is the best, right? So during the moment of prayer, any feelings, anything, right? Accomplishment. Okay. All right. And it's in a way rhetorical. Thank you for sharing, because each one of us express, even our faces expresses a different reaction, right? And it's a beautiful thing because each one of us have our own connection with our Creator. And I say this because when we get to the point that we read the parable, we may ask ourselves, what kind of God is this? And who was actually teaching through parables? Our Master Jesus, right? And we know that Christ was actually teaching through parable for many reasons, mainly because he was trying to reach the hearts of those individuals of the time. But quite frankly, I ask myself if Jesus would have changed anything on this today, right? But obviously, he had to speak at a certain tone and in a certain way for those individuals to actually understand. He was using of elements of the time so they could understand. So much so that talents is not the talents that we think of today. Talents used to be a way of measuring certain things. Gold. So one talent, it would be much like if we were to bring today to today's numbers, about, I think, 25 kilograms, which is roughly about what? I don't know. In pounds, would it be something different? Obviously, half of that, right? Divided by 2.2, you get the math. But it was a way to measure certain things. So whenever a talent was given, was purchased, was exchanged, we're talking about a weight of something, perhaps gold, perhaps silver, whatever that may be. And this way of measuring things changed depending on the group of people who were dealing with one another, right? So much so that the Hebrews then, it got to a point that had already been changed since the Babylons, right? So there are a lot to that we can digest with or learn from this parable. And what I would like to do is to read it, right? And then we're going to go through certain elements that I would like to highlight as well, so that we are connections with our Creator is still of this environment of happiness, of accomplishment, as Dione says, right? Of laughter as well, because we feel good, right? Not the one that is like, what kind of God is this? Because we can go there, and it's okay. It's okay. And if it happens to you, please let me know. Kardec in question 155, and this is, I want to make sure that I read this because it crossed my mind to bring this as well, that before we start. On question 115, from the a second part of the book, chapter 1, entitled The Progression of Spirits, he asks the following. Have some spirits been created good and other evils? What do you guys think? No, right? Because if God creates some good and some evil, right? He's being partial, right? If he created A person, a good person, and B person, a bad person, he's creating bad, right? Or malicious or evil. So then he has evil within him. Then we can certainly ask what kind of God this is, right? So God, number one, will not create evil. Oh, are we all in agreement? Is this helping in our connection with God? Hopefully, right? So does God create everybody good then? So are we good? Are we good individuals? Huh? Antonia's like, speak for yourself. I am. Half and a half. All right, half and half. All right. All right. I'll be nice. I'll take that. Okay. But if we look at our essence, right? We're not good yet. Look what I say, yet. So that I'm implying just with that one word that perhaps one day we'll get there, right? And we have the model, the example that we have already shared on other moments here, talking about the parables. But God created us, as the Spirit mentions to us, the following way. God has created all spirits simple and ignorant, an example without knowledge. So the ignorance here, right, is that we are created without knowledge. We don't know any better. And that is the reason why, according to Antonia, we're half and half, right? Right? We're not there yet. And it's okay because we have actually developed quite a bit. Tap yourselves in the back, right? We have developed quite a bit. But God didn't make certain choice to create this individual this way that we all leveled up. Simple and ignorant. Once more, the ignorance here is not the ignorance of someone who knows a little bit, let's say who knows better, but he knows that perhaps that we shouldn't go there, right? And we still do it. And we have to learn from our mistakes, right? That can also be a talent. We're going to talk about that. God has given each of them a mission, talking about us, the Spirit. It is aimed at enlightening them and progressively leading them towards perfection through knowledge of the truth in order to draw them near to God. In that perfection, they will find external bliss without any troubles. Spirits acquire knowledge by experiencing the trials that God has imposed on them. Some humbly accept these trials and thus arrive more quickly at their destiny, whereas others cannot endure them without complaining. Thus, through their own fault, these latter ones remain far from the perfection and bliss promised to them. So, I want to go back to two elements here. The idea of imposition. When we read these things, is God imposing us to be here right now? No. Some of us came here because we wanted to be here. Some of us came here because we were brought by someone else. Some of us, we're dedicated to the cause. Some of us have to give a talk, right? And here we are. I'm not going to lie. It's summer outside. Some of you know me. I would love to go, to the beach. But here we are. And thank God we're here, right, for this opportunity. there is a choice. The imposition can be followed by our choice, and the imposition can be followed again by our choice when we decide that perhaps the beach will come, right? Perhaps other times will come as well. Perhaps the heat shouldn't stop me, or perhaps the cold shouldn't stop me, whatever that may be, right? So the imposition here is that we're following a law of progress, and that is also in the third part of the Spirit's book that talks about that is a law that we cannot run from it. At one point, it's going to happen. And it happens whether we make the right choices, as the Spirit is saying here, or it happens when we transgress certain opportunities that we have to come back and deal with the consequences that we created ourselves. Not only in the external, but also inside of us. You may be lost at this moment. Why is Leo talking about all this and not the parable yet? We'll get there. It's a preparation that if we don't bring these elements together, when we read the parable, number one, we will have a very materialistic view of it. Number two, we're not going to accept it, right? So our connection with God, that in essence, it is our connection with ourselves, how we see ourselves. And this how we see ourselves also include how we see ourselves through the lenses that were applied on us, through my mother, through my father, through my brothers and sisters, through the environment that I live, right? And what is being imposed on me, because we're in the physical body and we forget the past. No matter how good we did, we still have to work hard, even if we were high. Let me give another example. Divaldo, for example, to accomplish the things that he has accomplished, right, in Spiritism, can we doubt that he is a spirit that is a little bit more elevated than us? I don't doubt, at least for myself. Does it mean that it was very easy for him to make the choices that he made in this lifetime? Not at all. Not at all. He had perhaps to work extremely harder because he's vibrating a much higher way, especially now at the age that he is, because he worked so hard to get there, right? To continue to do or to get to do the things that he's doing right now, right? And leaving a legacy of many other individuals saying, this is the good way to live a life. I'm going to do the same thing. Not to be Divaldo, but to also strive to become a better person. And some of us are also here because of that, right? So I'm giving that example again so that we can look at ourselves in the mirror and say, all right, so with the physical body that I have, with the means that I have, I can also be a good person. I can also continue to have or develop this relationship with our Creator, and to have an even better connection, as Dione said, right? That Wi-Fi connection with God that is super fast, right? That is super fast. So again, I want to say these things because I want to kind of clarify some of these things. So as a preparation, when we talk about talents as well, we have clarified what talents were, right, at the time, which will be a little bit easier for us to understand as well when we read the actual parable. But I wanted also for us to focus when we're reading, and I was going to say this later on, but I think it's pertinent for us to say before that we can bring two types of talents, right? Material talents and spiritual talents. Let us not just get caught up, even though I mentioned there was a way of measure things, right? And when we're talking about measurement, especially in the past, we were only measuring material things, but we can also measure in our own ways, okay? Don't let anybody impose on how to measure your spiritual talents, because that's something for us between ourselves and God as well. So material talents and spiritual talents. We're going to talk about some of them. So let us read the parable now. Let us talk a little bit about it. And then I'm going to bring three cases. And three cases that are very accessible to many of us. The reason I say this is because the first two cases, which is the parables being recounted They are in Portuguese, and you will see the book. And the third one is in a book that is by Emmanuel, that is already in English. But let us see what the parable has to say. I know it's a little bit small there, but I'll read slowly so we can understand. For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another one. To another 2, to another one, to each according to, one to another one. Let me take it back. I am so sorry. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away at once. The one who had received the 5 talents went off and traded with them and made 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had the 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And the one with the 2 talents also came forward, saying, Master, you handed over to me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward, saying, Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master replied, You wicked and lazy slave. You knew, did you, that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was on my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with the 10 talents. For to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have in abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. How do you feel about God now reading this? It's difficult, isn't it? It's pretty harsh. And who said it again? Jesus. Once more, we're talking about a moment of our lives, of humanity, where slavery was okay, was normal, right? We're talking about talents. We're talking about like the elements that we would bestow upon someone else for them to take care of it, right? And make sure that we receive it back. They don't steal from us, or they don't do anything from us if we were this lord of the man, that had these talents, these elements, right? But it was a harsh life, and he had to use the elements of the time so we would understand. And the understanding that we had about God, it's not the understanding that we have today, right? It was very fresh. It was very extremely fresh that we had the first revelation saying what? That God is the Father. If take some time, not now because it's very deep, at least for me, Take some time to realize that what we learned 2,000 years before Christ, that God is the Father, it's not the excuse me, let me take this back. That we were a monotheist. We became a monotheistic society, that we were believing in one God, right? It was very difficult because the people at the time, they believed in many things. They believed in many gods. And to have the conception or create the idea of one God was extremely hard. Then come Jesus and said, God is our Father. It's extremely hard. It's very, very hard. Imagine the connection that we have with our Creator today, trying to understand what it's saying here, and imagine what they thought about the Father. Because when we see that this man going a journey, right, that summoned the slaves, what is this man? This man is God, representing God. Who are the slaves? Us. What are the talents? All the resources that we have, whether they're material or the spiritual resources that we have. And each one of us have tons of it, right? Each one of us have tons of it. So it begs us to look at the message in a different way. And that's exactly what I would like to do with you. And then the examples will clarify even more, right? Because it's still like, wait a minute. To one, he receives 5. The other one 2, and the other one just 1. Why? It says right at the beginning. Right at the beginning. To each according to his ability. To each according to his ability. So there is no favoritism. There's no Alba will get 10, Leo will get 3. Oh, wait a minute. No, Alba has the ability to take care of 10 of my talents. 10 of my resources, she'll be able to manage well. She'll be able to take care of it, and she'll be able to multiply. If I give 10 to Leo, guess what? Perhaps it will come back as 8, because I will lose 2, because I haven't mastered yet the condition to multiply these talents, right? So it's a matter of the maturity that each one of us has to receive it first, and to also multiply. Because all that God wants is for us to take these resources that we receive and we multiply it. And there is a caveat to that, not only for ourselves. Any scholar that you go and read about it, dealing with this parable, it's one of the things that they will emphasize as well. This is not Leo saying, right? It's the multiplication of talents, not for that individual who received it, but humanity. And who is humanity right now? Humanity. But unfortunately, we're still growing, right? So humanity for us is what? My partner, my kids, my co-workers, right? At the Spiritist Center. Perhaps when we go and do something greater with the resources that we have. That is the multiplication, not only staying within me. Because, yeah, there are some people that they get up in the morning, they're very laborious, they're very, they work hard. However, they're really just living their own life. There's no sharing with other individuals. There's no sense of community, right? No sense of without charity, there's no salvation, right? And again, charity not only for ourselves, but for others as well. But going back to this idea. So when I think that God is treating Alba, since we give it as an example, just because God gave Alba 10 talents, and to me only 8, or perhaps 2 or 1, that I should accuse God of being a not so good God, right? Because she received more. Well, let's find out. How many reincarnations does Alba has in front of me? How many more people does she has already bestowed, under her and saying, I'm going to help these individuals? Where Leo is only thinking about himself right now, right? So let us think. Let us put our hearts to accept in a different way, in a different tone. I would like to ask you one thing too. Did you ever hear in anywhere God saying, besides creating us what we learned here, besides us creating us simple and ignorant, that God gave us a quality? No, God does not give us qualities. If I am, and I'm going to put myself on the spot here, tall, there's a reason to be to help people grab things from, right? My wife to grab things from the cabinets, right? From the top shelves, right? Oh, grab this for me or do this for me, right? But there is a reason. That doesn't mean that the person that doesn't have my height is less than me or not. Because sometimes, let me tell you, well, every time I fly, I wish I was about a foot shorter. But oh yeah, just half, right? So my legs wouldn't be bumping everywhere, right? But it is one of the talents that we have, right? Being short also means being agile, right? You see sometimes at the gym individuals doing certain things that you're like, man, I wish I could do that. But the center of gravity won't allow me to do so because it's much larger, right? So again, that we have to take it back and think, wait a minute, if that person receives this, not only it is a talent for us to multiply it, but sometimes it can also be a talent for us to diminish ourselves a little bit because the difficulties may be greater than we think. But let's continue. And if it's not clear of anything that we're saying, please stop and we can ask as well. Then he went away. At once, the one who had received, bless you, received the 5 talents, went off and traded. And I'll stop right here because we already read the rest. Traded. The trading. What is a trade? What is a trade? What is to trade something? Negotiating, right? So when there's one thing that the word trading implies. When you trade, you exchange. Thank you. You exchange. Adam Smith, one of the great philosophers, also a great man to read about it and understand trading, right? Back in the 1700s, right? He always reminds us that the ability that we have created then, right, to trade with one another, to reach the scale of productions, right, that one country perhaps has that others don't have, right? Much like, so and so cooks well, and the other person can buy the condiments, right? The other person can come and put everything together, like we will have our event tonight, right? So each one of us is trading something where I give something and I will receive something back. There's nothing wrong with that, right? The problem is that when we trade and then we're take advantage of the other side, or the other side is trying to take advantage of us, right? But every time we buy something, we're doing exactly that. For a value, right? For a quantity of money that is pre-stipulated based on many, many factors, I accept that I'll give you this much and you're going to give me something back in return. So there is an exchange, right? So when we look at the idea of trading here, it's not the trading that, the stock market, that it also helps quite a bit, right? That's why we have so many great things in life, because there are people believing in certain companies and saying, I'm going to give you so much money, right, for you to invest so that you can give me a return. And with that money, the company goes out there and promote their products, right? That's how it goes. There's nothing wrong with that. And and this is also a reminder for all of us to look at it and say, it's not so bad. The life that we have, and I'm going to use a word that many of us perhaps may not agree to it, a capitalist life in terms of, wait a minute, we need to trade. That's exactly what happened. Even the times of barter, when we didn't have money well stipulated like we have nowadays, what did happen? I had a sack of potatoes. You give me a sack of rice, a bag of rice. There was trading. Was that multiplying? Yes, of course, because I have too many potatoes. And if I don't do that with my potatoes, what's going to happen? It's going to rotten. The other family who needs more potatoes because they don't have a way to plant potatoes, guess what? Now they will have potatoes and I will have rice. So I will supplement rice, potatoes, right? Not only eating potatoes, or perhaps meat, whatever that was, or perhaps anything that we used to use to wear, to, to do, to sew our clothes or whatever. You get the point. So we need to trade. The elements that we receive, we need to trade. What can I give so I can receive back? What can I give not only to one person, but be as effective as I can to give what I have to others as well, so that the multiplication is even higher. So that when I receive back something, I don't receive not only for myself, but my environment. The trading is okay. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts. What is the settlement of accounts? And perhaps when we read it the first time, when I read it the first, second, third time, I didn't pay attention. Like perhaps there are other elements here that it may strike your mind more than it need on me. But it's, what is the settlement of accounts? What is the settlement of account? It's very imposing, isn't it? If I come to you and I promise you, right here, $10,000 right now, right? We're going to talk about this $10,000 a year from now. If you're telling me that you're going to give me 5% on that $10,000 a year from now, and so in this date, we're going to sit down and we're going to settle the accounts. 10,000 plus 5%. Where is it? Does God do that with us? Does he or her or it? Does it? When does it happen? I believe it does. Right here or right here, right? When we ourselves stop and think, wait a minute, what am I doing with my life? That's the settlement of account. Many of us, unfortunately, we only get to do it when we what? Are crossing to the other side, before or the after that crossing moment. What did I do? What have I done? I wish I had one more day. I wish I had one more year. I wish I had another life. And God is so gracious that it will give us another life. But we're going to get to that too. It gives us another life, right? For us to do it. But it does happen. But this settlement of accounts is not something that is happening on a man sitting on a beautiful chair saying, okay, what did you do to my money, right? Come to this way, that way, as we see actually on the parable. But it's us mentally, spiritually saying, what have I done? And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, because it shows that we have a level of maturity to say, I need to do this right. If I didn't do this time, I'm going to do it the next time, right? Or there's another moment as well that this happens. One, when we're going back to the other side, or when we're coming to this side. What happens when we read, what have we learned when we read Andrea Luiz saying the pre-reincarnatory moments that we have? We have what? A plan. And we do an accounting, don't we? Oh, I have this, I have that. I'm going to be reincarnating with this person, that person. I am supposed to meet so many individuals, go through certain things so that I can accomplish what I need to accomplish for myself and for others as well. So the accounting happens all the time. And hopefully it's happening with us now. Hopefully it's happening with one another, right? Hopefully it happens when we are having our conversation with one another, our partners, our friends, our kids, to say, what have you done with that was given to you? Kids nowadays, they're very, very good at it. Where is this? Where's that? Right? And it's a good thing, because it asks us, okay, where is my parenting with all of this? Where is my connection with the Creator as well, to show this child that ABC needs to be accomplished before we get there, right? So the settlement of accounts is something very simple. It depends on us how we actually are dealing with. And this is not for us to be afraid or to be scared or to be imposing ourselves in a detrimental way, but to for sure take account of it, but do it in a way that we will learn, that we're not going to get stuck on it. Because the last thing that we want to do is to be like the third slave, that because of fear, we hide it, right? We hide ourselves. More to come on that. Then I'm going to jump towards the well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. What is to enter this joy of your master? Have you ever accomplished something that afterwards, number one, you feel that, oh, that wasn't so hard? And perhaps in a way, because of it, you feel great about it. It's that joy that nobody can explain, right? But we feel so good about it. It's you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I wish I want to do this again, right? And again and again and again, right? Whatever work that is, perhaps servicing someone else, perhaps doing for something for ourselves that we know that is uplifting, right? But we all have been through this moment that we feel so great about something that we accomplished that we wanted to do many, many more times, right? Perhaps that accomplish of doing an exercise that we haven't done yet. Perhaps of cooking something that we never cooked before and it comes out extremely well. Perhaps when we see a kid accomplishing something, right? Our kids, right? That it feels it's that great thing ever, right? This is exactly what our master is trying to show it to us. It's this joy of being with our Creator. It's the connection that we establish with God, not in an asking way, but in a very deep level of gratitude that nothing can beat it, right? It's not in the, and I want to show what, it's not the idea of us being chosen to be in this side or that side with our Creator, but us in true connection with our Master as well. And the same is actually said for the second one, right? That it doesn't mean that you only gonna get there when you accomplish the multiplication of 5 talents. It's the multiplication of 8 talent. It's the multiplication of a resource that we have received, whether it's different or the same, greater or smaller from someone else. It doesn't matter. It's ours, right? It's taking that pearl that we received from God and multiplying them for the world. There's no such a thing about it. There's no really. I think the only thing that I can say, and not being a mother, not having bear a child, for the mothers here, right? Most of the audience today, thank God that I can use this example, is that beauty of having a child, right? And taking care of as well, obviously. Continuing. Then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward, saying, Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you did not scatter. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground, where you have what is yours. Here you have what is yours. We know we have our connection with God. And it's completely different for each one of us. Did God present himself to him that way? Did the master present himself that way? Perhaps. But he's the one saying it. He was the one who established that connection with the slave, the let's call it slave owner, the master, right? Sorry, I don't know, my arm is clicking. He was the one who established that connection with the owner of the talents. And he said it. This is how I see you. And this is the reason why, now an excuse, saying, because you're that way, I didn't want to lose it, but I didn't multiply it either. And what did the master do? You knew Did you? That I reap where I did not sow and gather where I did not scatter. So, why you didn't go and invest? At least invest the money. You don't have to do anything. Give it to someone else who will be able to invest that one talent, right? Or the resources that were given to you. Think about it. If you knew that I was so harsh this way, do something about it. Don't just sit there. Don't hide yourself and don't hide the resources that you have. Right? Since I used the word of the example of mothers, it's much like you have a kid and you keep the kid for the rest of its life inside of the house. No. We nourish, we give food, we give the best ever, and we want them to go into the world. We want them to be good individuals, right? Why would you hide such a thing? Why would we hide such a beauty, such a pearl, right? So, the excuses that sometimes we find to say, I'm afraid, instead of facing it, what we have, whether it's 5, whether it's 2, whether it's 1, okay? Whether it's a material talent or a spiritual talent. And this is when we get a little bit more active on the idea of the spiritual ones. What if it is a difficult that we receive? Yet we don't see as talents, right? But it could be a talent. An impediment that we have, that perhaps that we face, that perhaps it is an impediment that we don't continue on the same road that we're going. We take a shortcut somewhere else and say, okay, maybe it wasn't for me to go there. Because if I were to go to that same road that I was going before, guess what? I would hurt myself and I would hurt others. And we'll see a little bit of this too, as the examples. So then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers. And on my return, I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with the 10 talents. Why would you take something from somebody? We know that in a way he didn't invest it, and leave that individual with nothing. Let us create a hypothesis here. We take this element, this talent right here from this individual, right, and give it to the one who had the 2, or who had 5. Because right now, the one who received 5 and multiplied 5, guess what? He is the man. He can multiply things, right? It's like it's that individual at work that the individual is super busy, but if you give him another task, you know that it's going to be accomplished, right? Some of us may be in that position, but it's super overwhelming, right? But yeah, you know that, okay, you give this to John, John will get it done, no matter what, right? He will work extra hours. That is the one who received the 5 talents. You would do the same thing. We would do the same thing, right? Now, if John can multiply the talents, now make 2 talent, multiply the 1 talent to 3, 4. Guess what? This individual here, in a way, he'll be benefited. If anything, he will be benefited from the teachings that John can get it done. And perhaps he will look at John as someone he can, aim for and try to be like John. Not only now, or perhaps the next job. Not only now, or perhaps in the next lifetime. Because what happens is that to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's let's say the craziest end ever, right? Because we don't want to see anybody suffering. We learn with Spiritism that we have to be charitable. But what we're trying to say here is that when we fall into this pit, is that we will not even have that one resource that we had before. And we have to restart, because the grace of God is beyond our comprehension. We will have to restart again in a new physical encounter without that one resource. That doesn't mean we're not going to receive others. Because number one, we will be born in a family. We'll have a mother. We will have a father. We will have brothers and sisters, perhaps. We'll have society to guide us. And perhaps that 5 elements that were or talents that were multiplied before, it will be benefiting me now in a different way. Have we ever thought when we go to work and that we're not alone? We have many individuals who depend on us as well. If we're working on an environment that we are servicing the society, right? We need them. If I am actually producing or help produce a specific product, we need one another to buy that product. Going back to the multiplication, going back to the investment, going back to the trade part of it, we're not alone. So anything that was done, even though it wasn't done for me or by me, guess what? We're benefiting from. If we have something on the screen today, if we have a computer, if we have the internet, as Dione said earlier, guess what? It was the hard work of many other individuals. And who knows, between us, some of us were helping in the past, right? In the different ways to connect with one another. So that the idea sparked that one day saying, well, we can connect in a different way, right? Again, these are just hypotheses for us to understand that when we talk about the weeping and gnashing our teeth, it's not that God wants us to suffer, but it is also our conscience that will be taking us to that level to say, now I have to work super hard to fix something that could have been done better. Let's not say perfect, because to expect perfection from ourselves the first time we're doing something is madness. It's not going to happen, right? It's like the child. It will get up, fall, get up and fall, hit the head several times, right? And we'll come to a day that will be running. But it has to crawl, it has to fall, has to crawl, fall, and then get up many, many times. So the idea is for us to look at these teachings in a much more open and more accepting way, where we are helping ourselves towards God and for God. For God in what way? Because God doesn't really impose on us anything, but for God meaning for others, right? Where we are presenting ourselves for others. So, because of time, let us, I'll try to cover all 3 of them, because these are really interesting. These are the cases that I wanted to bring with you, because they will illustrate a little bit of what I mentioned earlier in terms of the material as well as the spiritual talents that we have received. In this beautiful book, Luz Acima, unfortunately not in Portuguese yet, by Brother X, and through the hands of the medium Chico Xavier. Yes, chapter 33. The book. I'm sorry. The title of the book in English would be "Light Above." I would say. Correct if I'm wrong. I would guess that would be the best translation for it. And the actual the title of the message is "Remembering the Parable." Brother X, or Humberto de Campos, says the following. I'm going to only cover the giving and the accounting part of these passages, these two passages that we're going to see here. Okay, the conversation goes like this: that the first who received was told to carry with you these treasures of joy and prosperity. They are health. These are the talents, folks. They are health, wealth, skill, discernment, and authority. Multiply them wherever you go for the benefit of your children and brothers who, in an inferior situation to yours, on the ground of the planet to which you will bring my blessing, strive more intensely. Okay, so the talents are health, wealth, skill, discernment, and authority. Okay, 5 of them. The second one, carry with you these 2 precious things, which are intended to enlighten and help the world with the world you are addressing. They are both intelligence and power. Okay, extend these respectable heritage to my eternal construction. To the third one, it says, take hold of this sublime lamp and follow. It is pain. The heavenly gift of spiritual illumination, light it in your field of work in favor of yourself and others. It raised open access to the divine tabernacles. So, I'll say it again: health, wealth, skill, discernment, and authority. 5 of them. The second received intelligence, power, and power. And the last one received 1 talent. It is pain. Who wants pain? Nobody wants pain. But let me ask you this. We all have an example in life of someone who's going through pain, whatever pain that may be, right? And you see that individual exemplifying life, I'm just going to call it life, in such a way that you're like, I don't know if I can do it. I do not know if I can bear the pain of a mother seeing a child sick. I don't know if I can bear the pain of someone who needs to live with a boss this way. I don't know if I can bear the pain of somebody not having the means to live a life that, unfortunately, we would like to live better, right? It's very difficult. I do not know if I can bear the pain of someone who is wealthy and have to multiply as many more times than I have to multiply. That perhaps leaves the family behind because it is the owner, that individual is the owner of many, or let's call it responsible for many other individuals, and it's his or her company. Think about it. It's painful. It's painful. And we all have these examples. However, let's go to the accounting part of it. The first one said, Lord, behold your gifts multiplied. You gave me 5, and I will give you them back double. Respecting health, I acquired time. Spreading wealth, I enticed gratitude. Using the skill, I received esteem. Moving discernment, I achieved balance. And distributing authority in your name, I gain the order. Your plan for joy and evolution has been executed. And then the master tells him, be joyful, come with me. Look what he did. Multiplying the different things that sometimes we fear, we push it aside, right? In the gospel according to Spiritism, that we see that wealth is a huge test for many of us, right? Because it entices us also to forget our past, forget the ones that we grew up together, right? Because now we're in a different status, right? And everything stays behind when we lose the physical body, right? But respecting health, I acquired time. Spreading wealth, I enticed gratitude. The more that I give, the more gracious people may be, right? And I'm not talking about to just give, but give opportunities. People will be grateful, right? The second one, Lord, receive your multiplied assets. By elevating intelligence, I obtain work, and submitting power to your wise will, I attract progress. Your expectations of instructions and help in my sector of activity has been met. Wouldn't it be beautiful if we have received intelligence and power that we can multiply into intelligence, work and progress? How many of us can do such a thing? Finalizing this part, Lord, take back the undesirable inheritance you gave me. I know that you are austere and demanding, that you reap what you do not sow, and that you order everywhere. Experience enormous difficulty in bearing the load that you placed on my shoulders. Fearing your judgment, I hid it in the earth, and I now return it to your hands. This gift is a difficult burden to carry. It became an unpleasant memory wherever I went. It hampered my desires, and in turn, no way would I want to possess her again, or it again. It is impossible to obtain profits or advantages with such an obstacle. So take back your strange and unbearable deposit. Sometimes we do that with pain, right? please leave me from this pain. And it's okay to ask. I had my moment, and I will have many moments of pain that I'll be like, I don't want to go through this. This is very hard, right? But Joanna de Angeli also reminds us that we are an example for the universe. And how I compose myself, guess what? Is the difference that we'll make, is multiplying such a thing, right? At work, sometimes people come to me and say, you're so patient. I'm like, no, I'm not. I fake it. And I think I do a good job. No, I'm not, right? Because I want to go in the back sometimes and just scream. We're dealing with the human heart, with the human mind, right? People have their way to express themselves. Sometimes I want to run. But guess what? I know that there are people looking at me as well. So I have to be centered, right? Right? That's why I go sometimes for my crazy runs, do different things, because you want to liberate yourself from those moments. And we all have this, right? How can you be such a very patient mother or parent? I'm not. I try my best, right? Many mothers will say such a thing, right? It is very difficult. It's extremely difficult, right? So we have to think that sometimes what we see as a difficulty, or perhaps even if we say as a challenge, right, it is the talent that we need at this moment. Because perhaps the other 5 we have accomplished in other life, in other moments of this lifetime, and we don't need it anymore. I never forget one of the speakers who came here from Brazil. I forget her name now. Joselma? Forget her last name. Yeah, Joselma Coelho, thank you. See, the beautiful thing about women, they can remember name, colors, man is like, yeah, that lady was really nice, but I don't remember her name. This is Leo too, by the way. Anyways, she said something really interesting, that sometimes we reincarnate with one need only, to evaluate ourselves and to evolve in one aspect of our lives. That's it. That's why sometimes we see individuals who cross over a little young, right? Than we expect, or than what society now is expecting. And they accomplish and they go back. Great. Done. Right? Sometimes it is that encounter with one individual and do well with that one individual, and that's it. But we expect all the great things of life, all the great material resources that God can bestow upon us, thinking that that will be my salvation, right? That will be the gift from God. To finalize this part, the master then said, "Babe, a bad and unfaithful servant, how could you multiply my blessings if you didn't even make the effort to examine it? How can you light the way if you keep the lamp off? Your idleness has transformed a few grams of beneficial service into several tons of anguish that will henceforth wait upon you. You created ghosts that never existed. You multiplied worries and fears that led you to scream and kick like a simple fool in the advanced circle of my works. Finally, you threw the treasure into a swamp of despair and revolt, and come to comment on the fear and the zeal that my presence instilled in you when you were just lazy and foolish. Pain was your sacred and unique opportunity to illuminate your own path, so that your clarity could support your companions in the regenerative and healthy struggle. You rejected the gift I entrusted to you. Return, therefore, to the shadow and despair that you embraced." And the servant, who had lost his way due to improvidence, and nonconformity, only understood the sublime value of the lamp of suffering when he found himself alone and helpless in outer darkness. Let's move on a little bit faster now because of time. Another example, and this one here is for us, spiritists. Very scary one, in a good way, okay? And this is a really nice book as well, Estante da Vida, or Bookshelf of Life, by, again, Brother X, and through Chico Xavier on chapter 4, is Study of the Parable. This is interesting because I want to just highlight one thing here, because there was a conversation between Humberto de Campos and other individuals, and then he said something really interesting, because I didn't put on there. I'm just going to go ahead and share with you here that the beginning goes like this. We were commenting on the need to disseminate the Spiritist doctrine when Rabbi Zon ben Ozias, distinguished Israelite advisor, today dedicated to the truth of the gospel in the spirit world, asked permission to paraphrase the parable of the talents told by Jesus and said simply. And then he describes the whole beautiful parable in his own way, but we're going to see a part of it here. But for those of us who speak Portuguese, and if you want me to translate the whole thing, I'll do that too, but I only translated part of it. But I want to say this because Abby last week with Alba, she asked a really interesting question in terms of when we pass, we choose A or B, or we lose our religion. We're talking about a rabbi, right, who is now talking about a parable. And where's the parables? In the New Testament. So he's a scholar on the New Testament as well. And he is being addressed as Rabbi Zon ben Ozias. Did he change? No. He continues to be a man of the Jewish faith. That doesn't mean he cannot learn from the New Testament. He continued to be in the spirit realm. He was, right? And he continued to be in the spirit realm, a rabbi. But now eloquently talking about the New Testament, and especially the parables told by Jesus. If we were to say this to someone, a person of the Jewish faith nowadays, they would say it's blasphemy. Okay, don't shoot me. Talk to Brother X, Humberto de Campos, have a meeting with him in the spirit realm, and you will ask why, and he will give you the idea. But I'm just bringing here the confirmation that we'll continue to be of this or that faith. We will understand a little bit better what the Spiritist doctrine brings to us, right? In a different level. And it's okay. It could be anyone else, but it struck me that it was a rabbi saying the following. He said, for the first one, the master transmitted money, power, comfort, skill, and prestige. To the second, he gave intelligence and authority. And to the third, he gave Spiritist knowledge. Wow. This is the rabbi saying, right? It's not Leo or Humberto de Campos either, So the first one, I'll say it again: money, power, comfort, skill, and prestige. To the second, intelligence and authority. And to the third one, Spiritist knowledge. And remember, they're discussing the conversation that they were having amongst themselves was that how can we disseminate Spiritism better or more effectively, right? And this is what they got. The first one, when we go to the moment that of accounting, right? Lord, I committed a lot of nonsense and I was unable to carry out your will, which determines the good for all your subjects. But with the 5 talents that you placed in my hands, I begun to cultivate, at least with small results, another 5, which they were work, progress, friendship, hope, and gratitude in some of the companions who remained in the world. Forgive me, O divine friend, if I couldn't do more. It's interesting that he kind of takes now in a level where these individuals, they knew that they weren't perfect. They present now not in a showing off way, right? They present in a much humble way now. Oh Lord, I could even do more. But this is what I multiplied into, right? So money, power, comfort, skill, and prestige. And what did he come back with? Work, progress, friendship, hope, and gratitude. Can we do that with money, power, comfort, skill, and prestige? A question for all of us, right? The second one, sir, please forgive me for my incapability. I was unable to clearly understand the designs that prescribed equal happiness for all creatures, and I made regrettable mistakes. Even so, I mobilized the two values you gave me, and with them, I raised two others with which are culture and experience for many of the brothers who remain in the rear guard or behind. Right. So the second one, if we remember, just to highlight again, received what? Intelligence and authority, and he came back with what? Culture and experience. Can we do that with these two? And once more, these two did what? They came back in a very humble way, not boasting about themselves, not criticizing God or the master, right? But in a humble way. And the second thing that they said that is really beautiful here in this passage is what? Amongst the people that stayed behind, amongst the people that I was working with, right? Now comes obviously the third one. Lord, I return to you the spiritless knowledge, untouched and pure, which I received from your munificence. The spiritless knowledge is light, Lord, and with it, I learned that your law is a very difficult work, attributing to each one according to the works themselves. How can we use such a bright and living lamp if men on earth are divided by nightmares and of envy and jealousy, cruelty and illusion? How to employ the flash of your truth without hurting or bothering? And how can I bother or hurt without bringing deplorable consequences to myself? You know that the truth among men creates problems wherever it appears. In view of this, I was afraid of your law, and I judged that the most reasonable measure for me was to accommodate myself to the peace of my home. So thinking, I hid the gift that you recommended me to apply, and I will restore similar wealth to you without the slightest touch from me. The master responded, You are not unaware that I attributed to you the light of truth. He knew about it as being the greatest good of all. If they both lacked the discernment that you could have given to them through example, that you flat out of fear of the responsibility to correct by loving and work by instructing, hiding the wealth that I lent to you, not only did you lose yourself for fear of suffering and helping, just as you also harmed the deficient work of your brothers, whose days in the world would have achieved greater yields in eternal good, if they had received the share of love and service, humility and patience that you denied them. Look at the consequences that happen of hitting that talent. Then the Lord's advisors led the disloyal servant into the shadows of the new beginning, explaining to him that the law really is a discipline of mercy and justice, but with a difference. For those ignorant of the duty, justice arrives through the charter of mercy. But for creatures conscious of their own obligations, mercy arrives through the prison of justice. Beautiful said, and it begs us to reevaluate the talent that we have received. And I'm not talking about to be a spiritist like Chico Xavier, or to be a spiritist of the level of Divaldo Franco, right? But to be someone who tells people, look, life goes on. Life goes on. That the beauty that we have today is a consequence of our past. Not only the negative things, because there are a lot of cases in the past from the past that we like to throw on one another's face or on our face, because if we're doing to others consequently or as a base, we're doing to ourselves, right? If we say something to somebody, it's inside of us. And it's so hard to accept such a thing, right? Oh, I'm educating. No, you have the negativity within you, right? I have such a thing within myself. That's why I treat others that way. To help other people reevaluate the positive that they have inside of them, that they bring from other lives, to, as a consequence, for them to look into the future and say, if I have accomplished thus far, guess what? I can do even more. Tomorrow will be even better if I apply myself today. That is to be a spiritist. And there's more in the gospel according to Spiritism. Don't just listen to what I'm saying, read, right? To multiply by the moments that we have something in our lives, a moment in our lives that we can do A, B, or C, or whatever. And we take a book and we read, because we're not alone in the physical realm and in the spiritual realm. And if I'm reading something that will help those other minds and hearts to encounter themselves wherever they are, guess what? I'm multiplying as well. Is to go to work, the physical work that we have, and not necessarily talk about spiritism, but to be a person who values the other being, who values the opportunities that we have, right? Thus saying, we believe in God. A little bit different than certain views, it's okay, but we believe in God, right? Is when we complain about something at work, since we're at work, right, talking about work, I'll say perhaps this person, having received the talent or having exercised the talent of pain, of wealth, right? Wealth of work. Who wants wealth of work? Nobody wants wealth of work, right? And then we can help them as well. That is to be the spiritist. To finalize, I know it's with time. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But Emmanuel, I would like to finish with this, because this is also for all of us, not only whether spiritists or not. Emmanuel has this beautiful passage, and this book is in English, as you can see, Living Spring. We have here, if you'd like to borrow, it's chapter 132, entitled Being Afraid. I'm going to read a couple passages only, and it's really interesting. That if the parable of talents, in the parable of talents, the negligent servant attributes his unfamiliar failure to fear. And this is something that we can, at least I find in myself, right? Fear of what? What is he talking about? And here it is. When we have fear of working, fear of serving, fear of making friends, afraid of being a disappointment, afraid of suffering, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of happiness, and afraid of, I guess I repeat it, it's not suffering, maybe I repeat it there, but all of these things, we go through it. I love this one here that he says, afraid of making friends. Sometimes we are afraid to give a little bit more of ourselves, number one, because we have a hidden agenda, because we're not going to get what we're giving, the inputs that we were putting there, right? It's that exchange that we talked before, that is like, okay, I want to exchange, but I want to get something back. And it better be of the same value. Not necessarily. Perhaps the other side does not know how to meet the same way of the deal. And we don't make friends. Right? Perhaps is what we need to do in order for that individual that we are exchanging, right? That we are trading, to switch and say, wow, I never thought about that. If Leo can do it, guess what? I can do it too. I can give without expecting, right? And then we give ourselves. Divaldo said that he used to do something really interesting whenever he got into a hotel, he would not allow anybody to take his luggage to the room. I don't know if you ever heard of such a, because he was like, no, it feels weird, you know? And then he realized that that person, through that service, felt great, right? Doing their job, they felt great, whether he had a tip or not, because whenever he's traveling because a group of people paid, or a group of spiritist centers actually paid for the trip, right? So didn't have any money to give, but that individual felt great. And then he jokes about it, that after he realized, it's like, yeah, take it here. Let me give you this one too, right? Because it was multiplying the work. And then within that work, that individual felt safer, valuable, right? That they could accomplish something. He finalized this way: they reached the end of their physical body as human sensitives without having made the least effort to enrich their lives. In life, they fear death. In death, they fear life. And under the pretext of being disfavored by fate, they gradually become champions of uselessness and idleness. So, if you have received a harder task in the world, do not be afraid. Make it your way of progress and renewal, no matter how dark the world of which circumstances have led you. Enrich it with the light of your effort and at doing the good, because being afraid was not an acceptable excuse in settling accounts between servant and master. Folks, that is the parable of talents that we can explain a little bit now. Perhaps studying a little bit more, we can do more perhaps when we meet next time to talk about this talent. Each one of us with this now, hopefully, can make an assessment, can sit down with ourselves tonight, joyfully, please don't do this in an imposing way, and do an assessment of our talents, of what we have received thus far. And I guarantee you one thing too, that if you make this assessment, right, and we believe in a God that hopefully is a little bit better than when we asked earlier today, even though we read this parable that gives the garnishing of teeth at the end and whatnot, we will see that he will give us more. She will give us more. It will give us more, right? Because the parables that the talents that we have will not cease to exist tonight. Even if we tell ourselves in our conscience that I could have done better, right? They will not cease to exist, right? Things will not just disappear like we see in the movie, poof, poof, poof. No, it won't show like that either, but at least we will be able to look at it and say, there's more coming. And for that, we're grateful. So I would like to open now for us to ask questions. I will actually be driving a little bit here, so bear with me here. I know we had my helper had to step away, so let me see what we have. And we have some welcomes here. Rosaura actually shows. Leo, thank you for your wonderful presentation. Hello, Rosaura. Yes, thank you. And then Yasko says, hi, Leo. I was thinking about mediumship. One second. Let me do one thing here. Sorry, Yasko. Oh, actually, I cannot see that. So if I do that, I cannot see that. So hang in there. Okay. Hi, Leo. I was thinking about mediumship as a talent. Many had buried it by fear of misuse by ignorance. How would the judgment be? Will it be removed plus no entry into the joy of our master? Very good question, Yasko. And it is for sure a talent that we receive, right? And first and foremost, and this is something that I didn't say on the talk itself, we have to look for purposes. We have to find the purpose of our lives, right? In the business world, and we have mentioned this before, any company who wants to succeed, let's put it that way, creates a slogan for us to understand, right? It creates it puts forth a phrase, right, that kind of tells us what the company is striving for, right? So they're looking for the purpose. What's the purpose of a company who, let's say, they do sodas. They sell sodas, right? They want to reach a level that that soda will be the best soda for the market, right? And I'm not banishing or saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just giving an example for us to understand. So they want to make sure that their product will be the product on the hands of everyone who wants to drink a soda, right? They want to make that the best soda in that market, right? And it could be different things, right? In any ways, it's the same thing with us. We have to find a purpose for ourselves. And we have to find a purpose as well for the resources that we receive, right? So if I have received the talent of mediumship, what am I going to use mediumship for? To help people, to help myself. There are cases in which we learn with Manuel Filomeno de Miranda that certain individuals, they went through many, 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 many lives, going through phases of mediumship to become a very, very, very valuable medium at this time. Many of these lives, they were considered what? Crazy individuals, right? They were considered witches. It was mediumship. Back then was painful, wasn't it? Do you think it is painful now? Back then it was worse because they would be relegated, right? Family members would not accept them because they were considered crazy individuals, right? And now they are coming back with the opportunity that it's much enlightening now because we have a doctrine that explains what it is. People are more susceptible for it. The level of spirituality in the world, or the need of spirituality, is much higher, and it's much easier for us to express ourselves in a more educated way, where things in the past was very painful. So what is the purpose of using this, of using mediumship? Perhaps not necessarily to, we're going to dictate several books, or help bring several books. I shouldn't say dictate, but bring several books. No, but to bring consolation. We saw what Chico Xavier did with the letters to the mothers, right? That Alba presented last week. Look how much consolation. What about the mothers who did not receive a letter? At least they know one thing. There's life after life, right? And if it doesn't happen, as I believe the Yasko was also asking, a new chance will be given. Now, perhaps in an environment that will be not as conducive as it is now, right? And there is another level that we really have to be careful. Just because we missed the mark, we should not punish ourselves. We should not tell ourselves that we are the worst beings ever. No. We know one thing, it's going to be harder, but it doesn't mean that we should punish ourselves and say, I don't deserve this, I don't do this. That is for God to decide, not for us. Because if we're trying to play God again, guess what? We're making it even worse. Hence, the second example that we brought here, that we're now humble, presenting to the Master, to God, that look, I did what I could, right? And I'm willing to do even more. But here's the multiplication of the elements that you gave me. And I hope that answers your question, Yasko. Anyone here would like to? Yes, please. Dione.
It's on already. I think that today is the best way I understood this talent thing. The way the guy put the skills, the qualities, and then the third one, the one that just gave it back, and it was the spiritual knowledge, right? Because then the other thing you put, like what explains why so many people, the way I see now is, for example, it's not a question of being rich or poor. It is a question of isolating yourself because you are afraid. So you don't make friends because you may suffer. The person may go away, or the person may betray you, or the person may not give you as much in return. How many of us been there with people like that? Or we would be in that kind of role because we are insecure, or we know about the spiritism and we are like, should I give that consolation to that person? And sometimes you vent, and you try, and the person doesn't, I don't understand, I don't accept it. No. So you see, it's like a big, complicated thing, but this is when we evolve. But it's the best explanation, like the talents and you don't give what you don't have.
Right.
So it explains why God, I always ask, why God gave 5 to 1 and one, like the discrepancy. Why? But today I understood that clear as water. You know what I
Thank
mean?
you. Thank you.
Because
And I
the
say
way
thank
you
you,
put in,
saying thank you to the other authors that brought the
yeah,
examples, because I
yeah.
don't think I would be able to exemplify as they
Exactly.
did.
The three
Yeah.
kind of, you put 3 parts.
Right.
And I think this is now, for me at least, maybe I was so idiot, I couldn't understand the very first time, but it really amazed me how that book that, what is that? Luz no
Estante da vida
Caminho?
or
Luz no Caminho and Estante da Vida,
uh,
because I think I didn't read Estante da Vida, the whole thing. I didn't have the chance. I
yes.
think I don't have that book, but I heard pieces.
Yeah.
But it's like, for me
Luisa
today,
Sima,
thank you
actually.
very much,
Yes.
because that was very clear.
Thank
And
you.
you how many people you see that they are isolated, no, 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 I don't, like very, they isolate themselves
Right.
because they are afraid. That's what I never said. Nah, selfish. No, they are afraid. They're insecure.
Yeah. And thank you, Johnny, because that is true. And that's why I said at the beginning, every time we come in contact with, every time we sit down to study, there are so many aha moments, there are so many wow moments, that it's like, wow, how do we let these little things pass by, right? These little interpretations, that I am not bringing this here by myself. I have to read, I have to get in contact with other authors, the interpretation. I did not know that a talent was a way of measuring things in the past. So, as Yvonne also mentions, that I have always struggled with the parables, so thanks to her insight, and there are many other ways that we can learn from this, right? Like I said, if we were to sit down together, we would get even more out of this, right? Anyone else? Alba, go ahead, please.
Um, Thank you, Leito. Just reading the parable and having the examples is really enlightening, shedding light, because they're in this century, right, thinking about the honor of slaves, and then kicking out the slave to the darkness, etc. That doesn't seem like a God quality or trace. However, there are 3 things that caught my attention in the original parable. With the first servant or slave, they said at once, meaning this person or individual already had experience. And I didn't capture that in so many things, many times that I read the parable, meaning the more we practice, the better we'll become, right? The second thing that caught my attention is about the fear of the last servant. And we know the fear is the antithesis of love. Fear is the contrary force of love. It's not hatred, it's fear. So fear truly destroys progress or things of the sort. And the third one, I'm always puzzled about this servant in darkness, weeping, like gnashing teeth. I was like, God, what a destiny. But it's actually, that's not imposed by the Lord.
Right.
It's the consequence of his actions. So that hell, let us put it in between quotations, we create our own hell or heaven. We can go enjoy, in the kingdom of God, etc., meaning that those are consequences of my actions. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. And it is so true. I want to add one thing to the idea of fear. Fear is one of the elements or one of the feelings that allowed us or helped us to be here today. If we don't value our feelings, and there's a great movie I'm not going to put out there because we can have trouble with that, about talking about fears. Now the second part of it, what I'm talking about, which is a great thing for us to watch. If we don't value what we have done and the feelings that we have already expressed, we're not valuing ourselves. We're wasting time. So value it, because it was the fear that helped us run from the lions. It is the fear that puts us a stop on us and say, wait a minute now. Now, the problem is when we take that fear, right, to an extreme, right, and we say, no, I'm not going to multiply the talent. No, you have to put yourself out there, right? When you have to run, you have to run. You can't just stop, right? You have to continue, right? It's one of the most amazing things, not to say otherwise, is when you're trying to teach someone to drive and you take them into the highway. Oh, Lord. All the different things that can be happening, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But you have to trust. Because if somebody did not do that to you in the past, we wouldn't be driving today, right? So you had to go over that fear. You have to drive. And you have to drive and drive yourself out of it, right? You know, it's funny because my mother, you know, obviously moved here with us as well. And I remember when she was driving, Isabella was like, are you going to take her out? And I'm like, yeah, we'll take her out. Isabella did a little bit more with the girls, and I did it with the girls too. And I'm the type of individuals that, okay, I trust you, just go, right? Obviously that trust, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But my mother was like, you know, it's like, oh Lord, what's going to happen? I'm like, whatever it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And she learned, and nowadays she drives everywhere. She's like, where are you? And now sometimes I look where she is. I'm like, what is she doing over there? How did she get there? So it was an emotional moment, let's say, that when she was actually, there is even a song from Roberto Carlos, from some of you guys will know, that he says, what is it? Some tantas emoções, or there are so many emotions. And I would start singing that song whenever I went inside of the car with her. It's like, yeah, so the emotions, but we have to go through it, right? So fear is great. Don't think it's bad. Don't think it's good. The problem is that, as Emmanuel was saying, is that when that stops you, right? And you are correct, Alba, because at once, you see, that's something that I did not highlight it, but it is true. You're ready. Is when God tells us, you're ready. If I'm giving you the talent, guess what? You are ready. And who are we to argue with God? We do it. I do it. It's like, why are you doing this? Why am I going through this? And we argue, right? Another passage that we read from the same book, from Living Spring, about 2 weeks ago, right? The moment that we doubt, the moment that we question, we are questioning the divine essence inside of us. And Emmanuel uses divine essence with a large D and a large E. It's the God that is inside of us when we question, when we doubt. So let us not do it. That's the hope that I have to, let us call it the talent of multiplying the parable of talents with you, giving you thanks, giving all of our friends online as well who are watching us, in sharing this moment. I would like to stop here and say a final prayer, and so we can pray with our friends as well, and then we will bid ourselves farewell. Yes, Janet, can you please?